a nice open source alternative to Google Hangouts, Jangouts. Did you know there's an open source alternative?
Here's the thing.
To
All right,
Hangouts?
hold on. Before you look it up, hold on. Stop. Here's my prediction. Okay, it will be something that is slightly less reliable than Hangouts, offers no real actual production value over Hangouts, but will be open source. It's just kind of like the same thing with like when the guy was like, there was that web version of Jitsi.
Yeah.
And yes, it exists. The web version of Jitsi exists. It sucks. It's totally unusable and really gives us nothing that Hangouts didn't give us. But yes, it exists.
It does exist.
So now let's go look at Jangouts.
So this is a video conferencing software based on WebRTC and the Janus Gateway with a UI inspired by Google Hangouts. It's called Jangouts. It's Janus Hangouts is what it stands for. It's a solution for video conferencing on WebRTC. There you go. It's a JavaScript application running exclusively client-side. The server simply needs to provide a bunch of static files through the web server. You have to have a Janus Gateway set up. Then you configure Jangouts by checking it out from their Git server. And then you install the required things like Node.js and NPM. And then you get up and running. You get the Node.js server started.
Okay, so it's definitely more work than Hangouts. So what do I get for...
Yeah, your own self-hosted Hangouts.
Okay, so
it's a WebRTC
So
chat.
hold on a second, though. We can already do WebRTC.
I know, I don't get
And
it.
WebRTC doesn't offer me the ability to specify codecs or video resolution or audio codecs or audio setting. I can't do that yet either, to the best of my knowledge, right? I don't know. Let's go to open
Yeah,
talk.
you're right. No, you
Okay.
might. But see, this is why I'm surprised but don't you think you're never going to get those options unless it's something open?
No, I don't. Well, no, I think they'll eventually get there, but until they do, there's no... Here's the thing. I'm all for using an open source solution. I'd be the first one to say I want to stop using Hangouts if an open source solution exists. But the problem is, it's not even that the proprietary solution is better. It's that an open source solution doesn't even exist. It's not even there. Well, Jitsi. Yeah. I can get Jitsi to work. I am 100% confident of that. And when that works, then...
Can I tell you something, though?
Please.
I don't even. I have a problem with that. Even I don't even want it.
It's not perfect.
I don't want it even in the web browser. I don't. That's why I'm not.
Well,
I'm like,
Jitsi isn't.
I know. Well, WebJitsi is, and this is like all these WebRTC things are all in the web browser. I don't want it in the web browser.
You know what? On its surface, I agree with you, and for the same reason that I think that, I haul around a laptop with me everywhere because I'm just stuck back in the time where that's what you did. But I think to some degree that's your and I's perception of hear me out. Your and I's perception that a native application is more responsive, is more reliable, is more stable than something than a plugin that runs inside of a web browser, because that's just a hack together solution to accomplish what we should be using a native client for.
I agree that there is. I do carry a bit of that bias, but and it does make me inclined to think that. However, I'm now going to just say I'm basing this on empirical data. Like, you look at all of the video teleconferencing we do in this network to make remote hosts possible, and unquestionably, the least reliable solutions are always the web-based ones.
Yeah, but you've also shoehorned a solution that was never meant to be. Hangouts is great for you and Angela to sit there and chat.
No, Hangouts is meant for group chat. Like,
okay, fine. Great for you and Dylan and Angela and a couple other people to sit inside of a Hangout and chat. It is not meant for transmitting broadcast quality content from one location to another. That's just not what it's there for. To be fair, neither is Jitsi, and we're shoehorning that into a solution as well. But I think that the differentiating point is that Hangouts is that that wasn't designed for it, not the fact that it's web-based. I don't think it'd make any difference if Hangouts was a native application. I think it would be better suited to broadcast.
In terms of like the video codec quality and the audio codec quality, connection quality, and maybe even UI design, maybe not. All of that doesn't matter that's in the browser. The browser doesn't change any of that. What the browser introduces is instability, because it is one more huge, gigantic piece of software that has all of the strategy attacks associated with it that Google has with Chrome, or that Mozilla has with Firefox, or that Apple has with Safari, or that Microsoft has with IE. There's all of this strategy attacks that's associated with these browsers that all get tugged and pulled in different ways that the market wants them to go, well, you kick that guy out of the room. They want us to all go in different ways. They want to build a platform on their web browser. They're building in things like remote desktop and WebGL, all this really great technology that I don't need in my video communications program. I just need something that makes calls and does video. I don't need like this entire runtime. The browser is feeling like the Java runtime to me.
Right.
The browser is feeling like this entire like massive virtual environment I have to have now to run these web applications. I don't want that much dependency and that much room for failure and that much room for software bugs to sit between me and my call.
Right. And there is something to that, is that we do introduce a lot of unneeded overhead to get done what we want to get done. The advantage to that, though, is that we get access to a wider variety of applications on this common platform, right? Which is the web browser.
Totally.
So, but I think that I think that whatever we do, if we plan to do this on Linux, I think we have to accept that we're going to have to shoehorn some solution that wasn't really meant for broadcasting, kind of shoehorn it in. But I think that between you and Rakai and I think we can figure out how to do that so that most of the people won't notice. When Jitsi worked, it worked great.
I know.
It's getting it to work.
I want to see more effort behind native apps. I really do. But you're right. There's less incentive for a lot of these people to make stuff natively for Linux. So
absolutely,
a good web app is our best next option.
Right.
And I don't think we shouldn't have web apps. Right. I just wish it wasn't like, it feels like, I guess maybe this is more to my point, to nuance down what I'm trying to say a little bit is, I feel like all of the really interesting development in video conferencing right now is all happening in the web browser.
Yeah.
And there's really nothing happening on the native app. You got Skype, you got Jitsi, you got telephony apps, Ikagia, things like that. But there's nothing really interesting happening in the native client-side application for video conferencing. All of the interesting things, all of the development, all of the energy, all the time is being focused on these web-based solutions. And WebRTC is a huge part of that. And here we are, years into WebRTC, and I'm still not super impressed. It does.
But it is getting close.
And if you just want to hang out with some buddies while you're playing a game, it's like, it could be a real easy replacement for Mumble. Like,
right. Look at Noah and
Mozilla, Firefox, Hello, whatever.
Right.
Which
is an RTC solution.
Yep. Yeah. And it works great for that. So it's not that I don't want that to continue, because I absolutely want that to continue.
Right.
I just also
for a different reason.
I want native apps to continue too. I wish we wouldn't just chase the shiny so much. I wish we could continue to invest in technologies that have some good fundamentals behind them.
So, Palazzo asks a question in the chat room, and we've gotten this in numerous times in the feedback, which is, why don't we use a separate video stream and an audio stream? And the reason for that is very simple. When you send two different pieces of information from one location to the other,
especially over the internet,
they arrive at different times. And not only do they arrive at different times, that time changes. It drifts. Yeah. And so sometimes the audio's ahead and sometimes the video's ahead. Yeah. And to make Rakai sit there, you would employ a full-time person 8 hours a day just to do a show where they have to sit there and line that up. It's just not practical.
We just wouldn't do video.
Yeah, it's just not practical.
Yeah.
But yeah, I give you my vote. You may not always everyone may not always agree with the attack the same problem the same way. Just like I probably wouldn't solve the same problems that you would solve the same way. But I can tell you this. I have a strategy, I have an idea, and once I think I put it down, I think we'll have a reliable Jitsi solution that will work. You just have to approach that box as if just pretend I am Production Co. and I just sold you a $5,000 video conferencing box. Yeah. And you don't know what software is running on it.
It's a magic box.
It's a magic box, and you just click on the button and then it works.
Yeah, that makes you make an appliance and it stays reliable and you don't use it for other things.
Right, yeah.
This is Linux Unplugged, episode 102 for July 20th, 2015. Welcome to Linux Unplugged, your weekly Linux talk show that's getting really hydrated because it's got some beer drinking to do tonight. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey, buddy, what are you doing in studio?
I don't know. This is the show I belong on, though, because even if it's unplugged, I still like Linux.
Yeah, you were on Coda Radio earlier today. I appreciate that, being a non-developer and all that. Yeah, you did good, man. You did good. Yeah, we got a great show coming up today. We're going to do a quick update on the latest news for Ubuntu Touch in a little bit, and also our friends over at the Ubuntu Mate project have an update. They're just asking people to test. We'll do a little coverage on that. The Free Software Foundation and the Software Conservancy have announced a deal with Canonical, a little change to the contributor agreement. We're going to talk about that today because we've covered that before. AMD has a dirty secret, and I'll tell you it, it'll make your Linux games actually work a lot better. It's very easy. I'll tell you about that if you got an ATI card.
Both of them?
Yeah, right. Ouch, dude. And then your good buddies, your friends over at Dell, they just took a crap on Linux users again.
Oh, no. Right after they released that computer.
That's the problem, actually.
Oh, no, no, it's not.
Yes,
That's
it is,
not the
actually.
problem.
So we're going to talk about that in the second half of the show. And then there's also something that I've been predicting for like 2 prediction episodes, like we do them at the end of the year in Linux Action Show.
Yeah.
2 years in a row, I've been predicting something, and we haven't really seen it take off today.
So wouldn't that mean it's wrong?
Hey. No, it was delayed.
Oh,
it
okay.
was delayed.
All right, delayed. All right.
I hate you, Noah. So we're going to talk about that in the show today and why Linux users will run and scream in fear. Because look at that. They're actually... Don't look at what it is.
Okay,
don't look at what it is.
I'm not. I'm just looking at the price.
I'm just going to say it was a Kickstarter. They had a goal of $50,000 and they've already raised $530,000. And it's going to replace the Linux desktop one day. Don't look.
What? Not looking. All right, fine.
All right, so before we get into that, I wanted to start. Hugo Silvia, who we've met, I think, at one of the conferences before, writes for opensource.com, and he did a pretty interesting write-up about different open hardware platforms that are out there right now. And I just wanted to show you this one, Noah, because I think you're going to like this one a lot. Now, there's a whole list. This one, though, from Old Spice. This is an open hardware platform. This is Old Spice Muscle Music. Have you seen this?
No.
You have not seen this? Okay, good. So can you describe to the people listening what's going on right now?
Well, I'm looking at a mostly naked man. He does seem to have something covering his man bits, and now he is flexing his muscles, and drums are going off. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Muscle! What? Muscle!
So he's flexing individual muscles, and each muscle correlates to another instrument. So he's able
Those are all drums, I would say.
by flexing his chest, his gut.
Keyboard solo!
And there's his keyboard solo.
Okay, all right. Never mind. Not just drums.
Nope.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So this is the advantage of open hardware. Is you can build things like this.
Flame sax!
Yeah. Now he's playing flame sax. Those are saxophones that are blowing fire. For you audio listeners, you really do have to watch this. This might be worth sharing even online because this is actually pretty funny. Now they have a view behind him, too.
Would you mind explaining what this has to do with Linux?
Open hardware, buddy. Open hardware. So this is over at opensource.com, and this is just to sync you. This is just to hook you.
Yeah.
I'm going to recommend the rest of people go check out the article. They actually have a whole list of different types of hardware and different projects. All kinds of stuff, like neuro knitting, air writing.
This will work if your body isn't made out of stone and then
Yes.
chiseled, right?
How about
Okay,
this
all
one?
right.
This one we've talked about before. And they're actually developing this under Linux. We've talked a little bit more, but it's about controlling your devices using X-ray and sonar and stuff like that. And so it's like for people that have like a lot of different disabilities, or just another way to interact with the computer, and they're developing all of this under Linux. And they have so you don't even have to touch the device in order to move the cursor and things like that. And they're going to try to build them into laptops. There's another example. There's a whole bunch over at opensource.com that was written up. I just played the Old Spice one because I thought that one was kind of
It's
funny.
amazing.
It was. And if you got to watch the video version, you know why I played it.
Yeah.
So just before we went right on air, Popey jumped in the room, and I was just starting to pick his brain. I think it was you, Popey, that tweeted you're getting a new update coming out to your MX4, and it looks like this is the 5th over-the-air update since the device shipped. Is that right?
Absolutely, yep.
Tell me about it.
So I've just pasted the link to the release notes in your
wonderful.
IRC channel.
Thank you, sir.
So this update went live. It was tested over the last couple of weeks, and it went live today. And that goes straight out to MX4, Meizu MX4 users and the BQ phone users, E4.5 and E5.
So wait a minute, hold on. You're telling me you can push out updates. Hold on now. Now, like the carriers are going to hold on to these updates, and like the BQ is going to get it in like a couple of months, right? That's how this works.
No, yeah. So that's why. I mean, I've mentioned this before on the show, but we split the updates up, and the bit in the middle that you have to worry about, the Ubuntu stack, we update that and we put those updates out.
That's lovely.
We do partner with BQ and Meizu, and those guys do a lot of testing as well. So we don't just push out updates to their customers, because they are effectively their customers,
Right.
We get it validated first, and it went out today. And usually we do phased updates where it goes out over a 24-hour period, and you may get it straight away, or you may get it later on, or you may get it tomorrow. But this time we did it all in one hit, so everybody got the update at the same time. Yeah. It's cool. There's loads of bug fixes and UI improvements, new icons, new theme. But the big thing is shell rotation, which everything was mostly locked in portrait mode, but now we've made it so
there's
you can
something
use
else
it in portrait and landscape.
And I thought maybe it was just my Nexus 5, and I still kind of write it off as just something on my Nexus 5. But I've heard it now from a couple of different folks that have, I think maybe they're using the BQ, I'm not sure. But huge ranges in battery life. Like some battery life is like unbelievably long, and some battery life is unbelievably short. What's going on there? Is that something?
Yeah. So some of it is device specific. So the BQ ones that we worked on early on and discovered some ways in which we can improve battery life, and they can go for days and days and days on standby, just sat on your desk, not plugged in.
Yeah, these phones are on standby are like 3 days. They're getting battery life of 3 days on these Ubuntu phones. Well, in standby,
and then you turn it back on, and it's you wake it up, and it's got 50% battery left, or some crazy amount of battery. Whereas the Meizu, we've got some known problems with it at the moment, and we're like, that's a critical bug, high priority critical bug that's being worked on at the moment. And I'm not sure the status of it. I've been on vacation for the last week, so I'm not sure the status of it right now. But I know there was talk of networking issues, holding, chewing up a bit.
And I was almost wondering if it was just the display sensor. It almost seemed like a display bug too, like maybe it just wasn't reading the percent right.
There's stuff going on in the background, and it's not necessarily. I don't know the technical details, but it's being worked on. Yeah, it's cool.
I'm waiting for Noah to get one.
Yeah, here's the thing. I get more and more convinced every time I see him. When we were at Self, I get a chance to play with the Ubuntu phone, and there was a couple people there that were using it as their full-time device.
Yeah.
Which back at Scale, which mind you was just 6 months prior.
Yeah.
They were showing them. They're like, no way would we ever carry these as a full-time device. Just not there yet.
Well, and you remember
that's in 6 months.
And do you remember at Scale, like they had to borrow somebody's phone?
Yeah. To come over and do the demo.
Yeah, and now itself, like people are using it as full-time phones just in that amount of time.
Yeah. It is. It has crazy cool development. And I guess I have two concerns. One is my one concern is, will there be a competitive advantage that you'll be able to leverage against things like iOS and Android? But past that, if that can be solved and we can get actual decent apps on it, I'm all in for Linux, for an actual Linux-powered phone.
Let's open this up to the whole Mum Room. Time-appropriate greetings, Mum Room. Do the rest of you have any thoughts on the future of maybe you, not the whole world? I'm not asking about everybody else. I'm not asking about all those different platform wars. Just you. Is anybody in the room waiting for a device to come on sale in their country, or is you almost ready to pull the trigger now? Anybody? Speak up if you are, because I'm really curious to know if anybody else in the Mum Room is walking the same fence that Noah is and is willing to maybe try taking a plunge.
I'm buying the MX4 as we speak.
Who's that? Who said that? That's great.
Bikini.
Very nice, sir. Well, will you come back? Will you let us know your opinions on it and how it goes for you when you do get it?
Sure, I'll be on the whole experience now because I have a laptop on desktop running Ubuntu 15.04 as well now.
Ooh, very nice. Very nice.
You still can't use the MX4 in the US, right? On anything greater than 2G or whatever it was?
I think, like you only get like a couple of the bands or something. I'm not sure.
In the UK, so it's not so much of an issue because we're pretty much stuck on 3G and hints of 4G.
Yeah. Razor, you want to try getting one? Now, you're in the UK. Could you pick one up?
Yes, but for me it's just finances at the moment, so I'm keeping an eye on eBay and seeing if I can pick up a Nexus 4 cheap.
Oh yeah.
The 4
my phone is a Nexus 4. I do actually have one, but it's my primary and it's Android at the moment.
Yeah.
It's a bit of wear and tear, so I would like to pick up another one just for a few quid. And then root it and run it and see what it's like.
I've had a lot of fun with my Nexus 5, but I know it's not really, I don't really use it to judge the quality of the release of the OS because I know it's not a target platform. So I use that on Ting. If something that was better than Nexus 4 and compatible with Ting's GSM network, I think I would get a dedicated device. If I could get like something that worked on, I want to have all the bands available because I don't want to be out there and be like, oh, this thing's so slow and have it affect my opinion. Of it.
Right. Yeah, and it would. It would. That's been my hesitation too. And I'm still waiting for it to get I guess a little more.
It does get more time in the oven.
Yeah, right. But here's the thing that is so crazy to me is how fast things are maturing. How fast things are going from not usable to usable to
actually like
totally
ready.
Replaceable. Yeah.
I wonder. So Noah, I guess we didn't say this early in the show, but Noah's in studio today because we're going down to OSCON tomorrow. Did we mention that?
Are we going to OSCON tomorrow?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
We're going to be there Wednesday, and that's why we're recording on a Monday today for the Linux Unplugged show. And I'm going to keep an eye out. I'm going to be seeing like what is we always do this anyways, but I'm going to keep an eye out and see if we see what you think. Noah has a Red Book prediction that we'll see 0 devices that are not Android or iPhone. Maybe we'll see. We'll see.
Android? Did you say Android or iPhone?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think they're all going to be Android or iPhone, is my bet. You think we'll see any Firefox? Well, except for presenters. I think presenters might have some there. Yeah. All right. Well,
I think you'll see, depressingly, a whole lot of MacBook Airs and MacBook Pros at OSCON.
Yeah, we do.
Sadly.
Well, that's true for a lot of conferences, too.
Yeah. That is But so that's true for. I think that's true for the conferences that are very business oriented. I think that MacBooks tend to dominate that. I think for the community oriented ones, I think that's very much not the case. For example, the email that went out to the presenters were, if you bring some freedom hating device, bring your own adapters because we won't provide them for you and we won't help you set them up.
The irony though is the ThinkPad really any less freedom hating?
I think that Apple has
remember that whitelist thing you talked about?
Yeah, which apparently has gone away on the X series, which I'm told.
Good.
But so Apple has a prescribed advantage to having people keep macOS on the laptop.
I agree that.
Whereas I don't think Lenovo really cares what OS is on the laptop as long as you're buying their hardware.
I do agree that Apple in that regard, and I just meant from a totally from a fundamental standpoint.
No,
from an actual
No, I don't think I've ever said otherwise. Unless you're buying a System 76, or the Librem, I don't think you can, or the Think Penguin stuff. I don't think you can truly make an argument that you're significantly better one brand over the other. That said, if you have a glowing white apple on the back of your computer, I feel like
it's a beacon.
Even if you're running Linux on that, I feel like you're advertising to everyone else that you're not particularly a fan of Linux on the desktop.
I heard you speak up for a sec. Did you have thoughts? Is the ThinkPad maybe more freedom respecting than the MacBook, or is it a silly metric, or what do you think?
I think it's a bit daft because they've all got non-free blobs in them somewhere or other, unless you go full RMS and get a MIPS funky laptop. But the difference is you're paying with your dollars. If you're buying an Apple laptop, then you're giving money to Apple. You are funding that system. Whereas if you go and buy a System 76 machine, you are funding the smaller guy who is producing laptops which are more open, more free. And
there's also the aspect that they contribute to the community in regards, and that they maybe help further development of that platform. So in the vendors of Think Penguin and System 76, they, even if they have a proprietary blobs and they have they're not using some core boot or something like that, they are still contributing to Linux in a greater capacity.
Well, not only that, I think you're underselling that.
When you buy a ThinkPad, you're buying a vote for a Windows license.
I think you're underselling that a bit in that it's more than just that. I mean, there may be proprietary blobs in there, but they're not hindering proprietary blobs. So, for example, I can get to my BIOS and boot UEFI or native BIOS boot if I want to. That is actually, as it turns out, pretty difficult to do in some of the newer computers.
That is a nice thing to be able to turn on.
Yeah. I mean, and so there are a lot of. I think there's a lot of little things like that, and I think that ThinkPad gets its reputation, its positive reputation from Linux users in that all the things I want to do on the ThinkPad, I can even if it's not totally a free computer, when I can guarantee you, I'll go on record and say right now, you find me any ThinkPad, I'll plug a thumb drive into it, I'll boot into it, and it'll work out of the box.
And it's been like that for a long time.
Right.
And I think that's what's built that reputation up.
Right. Not necessarily that they care about freedom, it's just that you can get Linux to work on it with almost as if it was right out of the box. And that is exemplified by the fact that Red Hat issues ThinkPads to all of their employees, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the end practical result is you can't deny you're going to have a better bet if you just go to Best Buy and you have to buy a laptop at Best Buy. You're going to have the best chance with a ThinkPad.
Right.
I don't necessarily know.
If you could buy ThinkPads.
I don't know if that's enough though for me.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it wouldn't be.
Because I'm asking about personal use, not what you recommend to people or businesses, just for my personal use.
Yeah, so personal use is you want to go with a computer that you're going to have the least amount of trouble. So then you would go with something like System 76, but there are some hard limits of System 76 in that, for instance, screen size. I don't like anything bigger than a 13-inch laptop.
Right.
And I can't buy a 13-inch laptop from System 76.
Right.
So I like, there are a lot of people that like aluminum chassis. To the best of my knowledge, System 76 doesn't make a laptop with aluminum chassis.
What size screen is your Lemur?
The 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so, yeah, I think, I guess to come back to sort of bring this all together is, I think there's not a great option either way. And I guess what I kind of want to get to is I don't like that we sometimes shame people for their hardware choices. I just rather they run Linux. That's
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. This is actually what I told the Mozilla girl when we were at Scale. She had a MacBook Air, but she never actually booted. She never even booted Mac OS on it. She got it, she opened it up, she formatted it, wiped Mac OS totally off, and put Linux on it. That's, to me, that's 98% effective. The only thing is when I walked by the Mozilla table for the first 2 days, I assumed she was running Mac OS because she had a glowing white apple on the back of her laptop. But that's, like I said, in the grand scheme of things, that's like 2% out of the 100.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas when I was at FOSDEM, there were people from Mozilla giving talks at the FOSDEM, Free Open Source Developer European meeting, giving talks from their MacBook in OS 10.
Yeah, I call people out like that.
Yeah, and I did as well. And I asked the question, do you not think it's hypocritical to tell us to use this freedom-loving software like Firefox, yet you're telling us that from that device running that OS? Do you not think you should be dogfooding your own stuff?
For sure.
And her answer was, I bought this myself, I like this product. So you can't argue with that, can you?
Well, so the most ridiculous answer I heard was, I was at this is a couple years ago. This is probably 4 or 5 years ago. There was somebody from the Free Software Foundation running a Mac, and I thought that was particularly funny. And so I went up and said something to him. Here was his answer to me. His answer was, I volunteer and work for the Free Software Foundation because I care about users' freedom to be able to choose whatever they want. So I chose to run a Mac. Like, really?
Here's a sticker.
That's not an answer. Like that.
It kind of is an answer,
That's
though.
not an answer. Come on. If you are part of the one organization that literally just brutally badgers people for not running the most perfect lack of binary bounds, then you're not only going to show up running not Linux. He's running Mac OS on proprietary. Come on.
Yeah,
that's a little weak.
That's a little weak.
That was the most pathetic answer I think I've ever heard.
I don't know. All right. I was trying to get us away from judging people for the hardware they run, but it's
run whatever you want as long as it's Linux.
That's kind of where I was going, but I will be curious. The only reason we even bring it up is this is just always such an interesting thing we observe before we go to OSCON or any other convention. Convention. It is a little bit of practice what you preach, a little bit of dogfooding like Popey was saying, and it's a little bit of, if you are in free software because of these, it's like with these Firefox developers, their argument would clearly be, well, I don't develop Linux, I develop Firefox, and I'm running Firefox on my Mac. That's their argument. But doesn't it come down to, well, don't you believe in the philosophy behind Firefox?
No, well, maybe Firefox, yes, but you know what the reality is? I think a lot of people at OSCON, I don't think they do. I don't think they care about the philosophy. I think what they care about is, I want to make money. I'm serious. I want to make money, and I think that a large part of making that money is catering to the solutions that people want, and a lot of those solutions, open source has a lot of advantages that you can leverage. So as a business perspective, that's what I want to do. I think that's as far as they look into it.
I think that's a huge portion of the people at OSCON, but then you do have like open source hardware alleys and stuff like that.
Brian's going to be at OSCON. So Brian, from the guy, the gentleman we spoke with at, so I mean, people
the
like
hardware, the laptop guy? You're talking about the hardware lap, the wood laptop guy?
No. We had an interview with him at Self, and we were talking about the core.
He works for opensource.com.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think there was somebody else. But the point is that there are people that are there, but I think that the conference is primarily towards marketing open source. And to be fair about it, I value that because I make a living off of selling open source software. And so if I didn't have those conferences, and the reality is, when I'm going to make my living, whatever hardware they're using to present on or whatever hardware they're using to develop on, as long as I get a solution that I can sell, I can put food on the table. Now, I might not be particularly happy about how that food got there or the sacrifices had to be made for that to happen, but the end result is the same, right?
Yeah.
So
that's deep, man. That's deep. You know what that deserves a little bit? Actually, I feel like that was so inspirational that I just want to give you a little... Thanks, man. That was nice.
No problem.
That was real nice.
I'm here for you.
All right, we got to talk about... well, actually, Pope, if you're going to stick around, maybe you have some thoughts on this, too. The change that the Free Software, Canonical, and the Software Conservancy just recently announced. But first, I want to talk about DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use our promo code DO Unplugged. No, that's one word lowercase, so don't mess that up.
I won't.
You can go there and apply to your account right now and get a $10 credit, because if you probably forgot to at checkout, so you should go do that. So go to digitalocean.com and use our promo code DO Unplugged. Now, DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up a cloud server. And, of course, you can get started in less than 55 seconds, and pricing plans start only $5 a month. That'll get you 512 freaking megabytes of RAM, which Linux is a boss at managing. It's one of these things where you think, geez, 512, I would never put that on my machine, and then you realize, of course, if I'm running it headless, I'm running services on it, and I take advantage of the Linux kernel's memory management, I can get a hell of a lot of work out of 512 megabytes of RAM.
On Sunday, I was using 512 megs to do my X2Go client.
Nice.
So that was my desktop, had 512 megs, and I had Thunderbird, Telegram, Firefox with a couple of tabs open, and it was all performing flawlessly. And of course, not to mention the core OS.
And a big part of that is, it's because you're running on top of SSD drives. Right. They're all SSDs, so that gives you a ton of performance. They have really, really good I/O. Like for example, like their data center in Germany, each hypervisor has 40 gigabit E connections. 40 gigabit E right to the hypervisor. I mean, that's smoking fast. They got data center locations in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and like I mentioned, Germany and London. they have a really simple interface to manage all of it. So this part is sort of the thing that keeps you coming back. Like every time like Noah and I are like, oh, I need a server to do this. In the past, just the process of setting up the system, getting the OS loaded, getting the updates installed, getting everything configured, that's a couple of hour job. DigitalOcean really has boiled this down to like 55 seconds. It sounds unbelievable, but it's true. And it's part of it is their super intuitive and awesome control panel. And if you use our promo code DO Unplugged, you're going to try it out 2 months for free when you get the $5 rig. It's a very simple and intuitive control panel, and then you can replicate the functionality of it with their API. A lot of people in our audience that are smarter than me use it for like really nice things, like I don't remember the exact details, but I think what he did is he set up, so in apt, when you're installing packages, you can actually have it run pre and post scripts.
Yeah.
And he set up a pre-script and a post-script that uses the API, and he didn't even write all of the code for it. Like there was already an example bash script out there. I think maybe it's a Python script, I can't remember. And it goes out, and it uses the DigitalOcean API to create a snapshot, and he can make iterated snapshots of it, so he can iterate back to different versions. It installs all of the packages, and then does a completed snapshot. So the guy's got pre and post snapshots that are all taking advantage of the DigitalOcean API, and if anything goes wrong, he just clicks one button, he's right back to where he left off. That's a really nice peace of mind. And they have one-click deployments for all kinds of great applications. They got CoreOS, they got Fedora, they got Ubuntu, they got Debian, they even have free BSD. Just use the promo code DO Unplugged over at DigitalOcean and try it out. Go create yourself a droplet, put something cool up there, like an OwnCloud rig, a Mumble server, Minecraft server, GitLab, Ghost installation. I mean,
X2Go.
X2Go is a great solution. That's what Wimpy uses too.
Yeah.
Wimpy's up there. If you really want to get nuts, dude, you should consider doing this, is in DigitalOcean, there's an option for private networking, and the transfer over private networking doesn't count against your terabyte. And so one of the things Wimpy has done, and you could do it too, is he has another rig on a private network that acts as a file server. So he X2Goes into his machine, and then he's got like file servers and all stuff all over private networking, all up on DigitalOcean, all crazy fast speeds, and he's only one machine's got the public IP, and he's only paying for transfer on that, and it's 1 terabyte, so it's like it's gonna last forever.
Right, but you know what? I have never once been hit with the transfer charge.
No, never.
Ever.
No.
So, I'm just going to continue putting them on the internet until something bad happens.
It's a neat idea to like, you
From
could
a
have
security perspective.
Yeah, like a drop it that's private networking that is your file server and all this back end stuff all up in the cloud.
But I mean,
for $5 a month.
Think about Self Alone, how much data I moved over, for all those footage.
Yeah.
And even then, I didn't hit a transfer limit. And that, again, is on a $5 a month droplet.
I know, it's great.
I don't know.
Promo code DO Unplugged, and a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Unplugged program. You guys are busting it up. So I'm gonna read this. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer, but I know that everybody was really upset about the contributor agreements around Canonical and licensing stuff and conflicts with the GPL. So the Free Software Foundation and the Software Freedom Conservancy have both put out statements about a change to Canonical's intellectual property policy that was negotiated over, they say, the last 2 years. Effectively, Canonical has added what they call a Trump clause that clarifies the licenses of individual packages that override the Canonical policy when there is a conflict. I want to read that again. This Trump clause means that the Canonical policy is overridden if it's conflicting with another license, like, say, the GPL. They say, while a Trump clause is a reasonable way to comply with the GPL in a secondary licensing document, the solution is far from ideal. Redistributors of Ubuntu have little choice but to become experts in the analysis of Canonical's policy. That's their opinion. They must identify on their own every place where the policy contradicts the GPL. If a dispute arises on a subtle issue, Canonical could take legal action, arguing the redistributor's interpretation of the GPL was incorrect. Now, this is all could be woody. Would Canonical even do this? They're speculating. Even if the redistributor was correct that the GPL trumped some specific clauses in Canonical's policy, it may be costly to adjudicate the issue, take it to court, while backing the change made. Both the Free Software Foundation and the Software Conservancy recommend further changes to make the situation even more clear. There has been a very, very wide range of reactions to this, from elated to some folks like Jonathan from Ubuntu saying it's not enough, Benjamin saying it's a good start, it helps developers. There's a lot of different takes on this, but to me, it seems like a really smart move, because essentially what this allows is if there's ever a conflict between a Canonical contributor policy and the GPL wins, and it's kind of like this Trump clause, and at the end of the day, the GPL wins. And that, to me, seems like a pretty big step forward. Popey, if you have any opinions on this, am I missing any of the details? Am I sussing it out quite right from what you know?
I feel uncomfortable talking about this because I'm not a lawyer and I work for the company.
That's how I feel. I'm not a lawyer either, so that's fine. I know. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
The only thing I would say is that I think people think that this is used for more nefarious purposes than it really is.
It sounds like it.
And I don't think there's any way in which we would use it for the ways in which many people think we would. And it's difficult because, you know, you can come up with 100 different hypothetical scenarios where Canonical will be the bad guy, yet for the last 10 years arguably we've been the good guy. We have been contributing. We have a very open trademark policy, and it's unfortunate that it's taken a lot of backroom conversations between Canonical, SFLC, and FSF that's resulted in one paragraph change at the moment. I guess there may be more changes in the future, but I'm not party to those discussions, so I just don't know. Yeah,
that's kind of where I think a lot of us sit. From the outside, to me, watching this as an observer, it sounds like a lot of upset about what could happen, what Canonical may have the legal authority to do if they were so inclined, had the money, had the time, and wanted the bad PR. They could, in some cases, go after somebody for using a package in their redistribution of Ubuntu or something like that.
It's you know, it's more from my perspective, as while I work for Canonical, I'm kind of an outsider to this because I don't take part in any of these legal conversations.
Of course.
So from my perspective, it seems more that this policy is more to say, look, if you go to a vendor of whatever type, whether that's a hardware vendor like System76 or a cloud vendor providing cloud images, if they say to you what we're providing is Ubuntu, then that should be something that is verifiably Ubuntu.
Sure.
And it's not been monkeyed around with in particular ways that would make it not Ubuntu. And I mean, when I say not Ubuntu, I mean it might have nasty proprietary stuff added, or they may have changed the configuration massively, or it might have backdoors in it, or it might talk to their some other server that you wouldn't want and you would trust us not to do in official Ubuntu images. So it's more, if you think about how this might be used, that's more how it would be used, is to say, well, you're supplying hardware and you're saying it's Ubuntu, but actually is it? Or you're providing cloud images and you're saying that is Ubuntu.
That gets in a weird spot for the brand and for Canonical and user expectations. Right. And I can see that. Daredevil, you wanted to jump in on the Canonical defense side real quick?
Yeah, just honestly, I think Bobby then finalized it and expressed what I felt about the situation. Okay. But overall, yeah.
Yeah, I do too, and I kind of come at it from a more pragmatic standpoint. Like I'm really happy to see this much movement, and I'd love to see more movement on the issue. It just seems to be something that is a big hang up for some people. I know
lawyers don't work quickly, do they?
It's not in their interest, is it?
I have always felt, on one hand, that if somebody isn't going to use a power for, if somebody isn't, if the argument is, well, the CLA would never be used for anything bad, we would never actually, force that on anyone, then I would ask, why is that power even necessary?
I think what that is there's only so many tools in the chest, right? And you have to write in a way where you can accommodate for future scenarios.
Yeah, I've always been a little uncomfortable, but on the other hand, here's the other side of that. Canonical is a company, and they exist to make money. They have to pay employees, they have ongoing expenses, and let's face it, their biggest product, Ubuntu, they give away on the website for free. So, there was a post a while back that where somebody talked about the dynamic of open source and how if you're if you're a paid developer, then you're given a paycheck and you write code, and then the company owns that code, and they don't give anything back in this, that, and the other. Where it's open source, there has to be a two-way exchange for that to be a profitable relationship, right? And I guess my instant thought when I heard that as a business owner is, I think, aren't they giving back the finalized product of Ubuntu constantly away for free? I mean, it's not in the free as in beer, not as in free as in freedom sense. I see that there's a very clear distinction there, but I think to some degree what Canonical does is says we need to be able to protect our ability to make money, and so if we find something we can profit on,
maybe, but only in a broader sense. I think what it is, what Popey was just saying is, think about, like, what's the main reason that Google hates it when the carriers take Android and they muck it up. Users come in with one expectation, somebody else takes that, they change it, they still call it Android, but the buttons are in a different place, the things do different things. You know, my phone gives me a volume warning about my hearing every time I turn up the volume, but my Nexus doesn't. There's different changes, and as a user, I want to know that if I go in and I get brand A of phone, I'm going to get the things that brand A has. It's the same reason why I like to buy Heinz ketchup, because I always know what Heinz ketchup has in it. It always tastes the same. And I want to know as a customer, Heinz ketchup will always taste the same. And I, as the Heinz company, if somebody else comes along, takes my Heinz bottle, empties it in a new bottle, and adds a bunch of salt and sugar and calls it something else, or still calls it Heinz, that's even worse. That's much worse, actually, if they still call it Heinz. Then me, as a company, I got to do something to protect what people expect when they buy Heinz ketchup.
So, and again, excuse my ignorance if I'm missing this here, but doesn't open source provide for exactly that? If you fork a project, you can't use the original I mean, those...
Well, that's where these tools and copyright and trademark come in.
Right, but my understanding was the beef of the CLA was essentially that people were upset that they could make contributions to Canonical, and then those wouldn't necessarily be submitted back
They
upstream.
could potentially be relicenses, actually.
This isn't really related to the CLA.
Yeah.
This is more the intellectual property policy that is
Who
on the
owns
Ubuntu
it?
website about using Ubuntu.
And so this is more about, okay, so the CLA, still in effect. A lot of projects have contributor license agreements. A lot. Like Apache, a lot of them have it. This intellectual property thing, this is more about, like, I mean, honestly, where I could see this coming up, and we could let's just use our buddy Wimpy, because he's not going to get any trouble. But, you know, a distro like Wimpy's, Ubuntu Bate's project comes along, gets a hardware vendor, and they start calling it an Ubuntu machine. But yet, it's not an Ubuntu experience.
Right, yeah. Yeah, it's Ubuntu would say.
So at some point, like, what if a really big company came along and did that? They've got to have the tools possible to protect it, because they could just become irrelevant if they didn't defend that. So I think that's what this is about.
But if you relicense it, doesn't it then become the potential for not being able to contribute that back upstream? And so then isn't it? So then I guess, and I realize we're getting further and further down the rabbit hole of what if, but
I mean, because I don't know, I'm not a lawyer.
But it just, I guess the concern I see is I could potentially write code and think I'm contributing to all of these projects, and in the end, Canonical could, as the way it's written, just take it and say, no, we own that.
Well, you are, again, you're confusing the contributor agreement with
maybe I am, yeah.
But even the CLA doesn't say that. You get to keep the rights over your work. You just grant us the ability to redistribute that work as well. That's the difference. Which
does include a relicensing,
by
though.
contributing
Like, you could,
us.
like, it does allow to relicense to, like, Apache, or doesn't it allow for some relicensing too of code? It doesn't mean they can't contribute to their own code still, though, right?
Potentially, but you still get to keep the rights over your code. So you could still distribute it under the GPL or whatever license you had it under.
Yeah, so they haven't changed the code then. They haven't changed the licensing then, right?
Well,
I mean, so they forked it and changed.
They would fork it, relicense it. Now, Canonical could continue to develop that version that's under a different license.
Yeah,
and you would continue to have your version under your license.
See, but that doesn't seem egregious to me, because at the end of the day, there is no way that somebody else can take a software and say this is Ubuntu if it's not in fact Ubuntu, and at the same time you're not hindering the efforts of people contributing.
Right.
So I think the thing that people find egregious, not separate from the whole legal discussion, is that potentially you as a manufacturer, you could make a phone, right? And you could go and get all the pieces that make up Ubuntu, the brand, the distro, the software. You could go and get all those pieces and put them on a phone and say, hey, look, we've made a phone and it runs what you would normally call Ubuntu. But you couldn't sell that and call it Ubuntu until you talk to us, until we have a conversation with you about licensing that, that brand, that trademark. And once you do have that conversation, we're all golden. But you can't until you've done that, and that's fair. The same with laptops and cloud. And
that's why I think it's a little
images.
silly. That's such. I mean, I do totally get where people are coming from, but I don't really think it's as huge of an issue as we made it out to be. Because the only time it would become a really, really huge issue is if Canonical got to the size of Google, Microsoft, or Apple.
But even then, I guess I'm still seeing where, even if they did get to be that big size, and even if they did have nefarious ideas, what could they do? What could they?
Okay, then we're gonna. I think we got to move on. But I'll just give you the worst case, total, not going to ever happen scenario. Let's say Canonical in 20 years is they buy Apple. They're so big, right?
Okay.
They're so rich, and let's stick with this. So say Apple buys Cups, this printing system that all Linux boxes use, right? They get this program called Cups. They take it and they decide to really make iOS and Macs really integrate super well together. They're going to fork and relicense Cups, and they're going to continue to develop Cups separately. They're not going to take away Cups from the rest of the community, because that remains. They'll just languish on GitHub or whatever.
Right.
But they take Cups and they drew in a whole new direction that adds a whole bunch of really neat printing features. Now, the rest of Cups doesn't get any of that stuff.
Right.
And so the Cups developers are like, oh man, you took our code and you made it way more awesome and you never contributed back. That's a total waste. But the thing
they're doing
is,
that on their own dime.
in today's world, in the way the world is set up today, if Canonical did that, a few million people would use that. The rest of the entire industry would still use the open standard, regularly licensed product that everybody else is using, and it doesn't really change the technology landscape.
Okay.
It doesn't really change anything. So the only reason why this agreement on the CLA and all this stuff I think really would matter is if Canonical was so huge that they would be able to deprive the original source project from really any innovation, which is very unlikely to happen.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So you could potentially stifle innovation, but yeah, even then,
But you'd have to be at such a scale that essentially all of the majority of users in development would move to the other project.
Right.
And then who's going to want to do that if you're relicensing it in the first place?
Yeah.
It's just not like, it just doesn't seem like a super critical major problem.
Yeah. I guess the whole concept of open source to begin with was the idea of having a license to begin with was that you couldn't change the license, and if the license can be changed at any time, then it kind of defeats the entire purpose of it take a share and redistribute.
Now that we got the software license, I just the lawyering stuff, like, and the licensing stuff, man, it's just like it's not.
Yeah, because let's be fair, neither of us
really
really have a clue,
and we don't really care either.
No,
like I know a lot of Linux users do, and I totally respect that. I'm not downplaying it, but me personally, I've never been like. That's not the first reason I jump in.
Because we've got so many other more critical problems to deal with long before we ever get to that.
I'm glad some people are worried about it, though. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And somebody and that's good, and it's good to see some results too. I think that's also really good. And it took them a couple of years, but some people some lawyers made some good money, and some donations were well spent. All right. Now, in the meantime, let's spend a little money on ourselves. Let's get a little more in our toolbox, a little more educated, a little better at something that could make us maybe more competitive in the workforce. I'm talking about Linux Academy. Go to Linux Academy right now, won't you? And go get our discount. In fact, if you go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged, you get our 33% discount. Boom, Noah.
That's a big discount.
That is. Are you a Linux Academy user, Noah?
Of course I'm a Linux Academy user.
Yeah. You know what? The first thing that really hit me about Linux Academy when I signed up was how well it worked for the way I work. Like I log in and I was like, oh man, do I really want to tackle, like this case it was Ruby. Do I really want to tackle this topic? Like, to me, the idea of learning Ruby is like a commitment. Like I'm going to, this is a life journey I'm going to take. I'm going to go learn Ruby. And when I logged into Linux Academy and I looked at the Ruby course, and I was able to take this huge, ginormous, nebulous topic of learning a new programming language, and I was able to put 5 hours and 35 minutes on it, I was holy crap, you mean I can learn Ruby in 5 hours? And that is something my brain can not only process, but I know how to fit that into my life. Like that is something I can wrap my head around. It's no longer this huge thing that's an unaccomplishable task. It is all of a sudden, it's very laid out, it's step by step, what I'm going to do, how long each section is going to take me, and it's like...
Because why even start a project if you know that halfway through it, or even a tenth of the way through it, you're going to run out of time and you're not going to be able to finish anyway. So why even bother starting?
And it's super nice because they have availability selectors. You can tell how much time you have available. They have 7+ distros you get to choose from, so all of the courseware will match that, and the servers that spin up during your courseware match that as well. It's really nice. You get to keep track of your progress right as you go and pick up right where you left off when you come back. They have so many great new OpenStack Essential courses, the best AWS courses out there with scenario-based labs, Docker, Vagrant. I mean, the list goes on. I go through this list all the time, and it's like I could just sit here and go off, but you don't need to. Go to Linux Academy and go look at the courses. Go look at the nuggets. They got so many different things up there. The DevOps courseware, I don't ever really talk about that very much. Learning Vagrant, Docker Deep Dive, Chef DevOps Deployment, Learning Puppet. All this kind of stuff is extremely, extremely handy. And it's not just Linux, it's all the stuff built around Linux.
You know, and things like Puppet too, Chris, are one of those things that that's a very difficult thing. It's very dry.
Yeah.
If you're reading a tutorial,
Yeah.
my God, to go through things like Puppet
man.
inside of a written tutorial, it's painful.
And you know, you can download the guides and stuff and the audio and listen to it like in the car and
Well,
stuff.
but forget that. They have the videos. They
Yes.
demonstrate how
Yeah.
they're doing it. And you know, when I can hear a person explain, now we're going to do this, and he breaks up that just monotonous block of text. That's hugely helpful. And there are certain things that I've learned on Linux Academy that I would have never been able to get through if I was going out and searching tutorials myself.
On top of that, they hold QA sessions through Hangouts and stuff, which is really nice. So you can ask the instructor questions. They have a good community you can follow on, which are stacked with JB members if you have any like tough spots or a success story you want to share. And they have team accounts if you are a small business or a group of people that want to work together. And they're adding new labs all of the time. All of the time. It's such a great system because it's built by true Linux and open source enthusiasts who want to help spread the platform. And the way they want to help contribute to Linux and open source is by creating something that helps more people take advantage of it. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Go get our special 33% discount. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Unplugged program. You guys are the bestest. Now, this one I don't really know if we're going to get a lot of conversation about, but I pretty much buy NVIDIA cards if I'm going to have a dead. It's either Intel or NVIDIA for me, most of the time.
Does somebody else make graphics cards?
Well, ATI AMD's got. Do you have any rigs with AMD? No.
No, I bought one AMD or one ATI car, whatever it was,
Bitcoin
8
mining?
years ago. Yeah, and I had such a pain in the rear trying to get the stupid thing to work with Linux. And even today, even like this is that was back in 1204 days.
Yeah.
Even on like 1404, 1410, I go to install it, and it is such a pain to get drivers working.
I know.
For ATI, and you
I
have
feel
to
like they
drop down.
keep teasing us with like the new driver models. They're going to fix all of this.
Here's what you have to do. If nobody's ever done this, you have to kill X. Go to the command line, take the .run file, modify the permission so you can run it, run the stupid thing, then it's just a huge
they don't even mark it executable. They don't even mark it executable.
So NVIDIA, I click on the little checkbox that says enable NVIDIA drivers and restart my machine, and then I have NVIDIA drivers. And Intel, I don't even have to do that.
Anybody in the mumble room want to become an AMD ATI video card defender before we move on? I know some of you have success with the open source drivers.
So what he means to say is, does anyone want to get kicked out of the mumble room? No. Does anyone have a counter argument?
I'm just waiting for the ARM cards also to get real.
Ooh.
I mean, the ARM space is coming along.
Yeah, very true.
I really want to see that to become also a platform for competition with the desktop market.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. All right, so here is the pro tip. If you're not getting enough performance out of your AMD card, Linux users, I have something for you. This was discovered, as you would probably not be surprised to learn, I believe over at the Phoronix forums. Surprise, surprise. And it's been tested now. AMD Catalyst Linux drivers perform wildly different based on the file name of the game you're playing.
What?
Yeah. So in the past years, AMD Catalyst driver has yielded better performance if naming the executable Doom 3.x86 or comp is, like if you just named it that. But these days, the application profile concept is made more absurd with games that are coming to Linux all the time. So the latest example, you can get a 40%, I'm going to say that again, a 40%. People do massive hardware upgrades to get a 40% improvement, right?
Less than that.
Yeah. 40% better performance by renaming Counter-Strike Global Offensive on Linux. If you rename the CSGO_Linux binary to HL2_Linux for Half-Life 2 within Steam, the frame rates suddenly increase across the board. This is with the latest Catalyst 15.7 Linux driver, while CSGO has been on Linux for nearly a year now.
Is this a thing on other graphics cards, or this is ATI specific?
Well, it's not totally uncommon. You know what it is like it's a cat and mouse game, because the video card manufacturers are trying to compensate for crappy developers, and developers are trying to compensate for crappy video card manufacturers, and so they're writing like profile specific settings for games, and the only way they can really figure out how to do it is by looking at the file name. But the question is like, should they even be doing this at all anymore? It's a clown show.
Yeah, it really is.
What do you think, Daredevil? You think it's for maybe like benchmarking?
No, not just benchmark. I think actually these has potentials agreements between the graphics video card companies and the game companies.
Ooh, dirty play.
Some games are successful and not others. And this raises the question if they shouldn't be probed about this.
Yeah, I mean, you've definitely like Samsung got busted last year when whenever you would run a benchmarking app on Android, they would detect that and overclock the CPU during the benchmark app's process time, and then when you close the app, they declock the CPU.
Very nice.
Dirty,
Very nice.
dirty. So maybe, and you know, some game manufacturers do get a little money from NVIDIA to put the "Made for NVIDIA" splash screen that comes up.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I think it's more like AMD trying to be too smart, and I think it's also a little bit of a hit and miss in 3D applications under Linux over the last few years, because these guys have a whole history of, you know, writing drivers for Linux for a long time. They've been through the bad days where this maybe was kind of needed.
But these situations have been targeted before for market competition laws. I pretty much this sounds extremely illegal.
Yeah, you know,
because they should be
right.
focusing on making the driver for the graphics card to work.
Yeah.
And the program should be doing the calls, not the driver.
But if you're ATI and AMD and you're getting all these reports about this game crashing only on your card, and the developer of the game isn't releasing any patches to fix it, don't you feel some pressure to fix it on your end if you know how? Just to give your card a better name, because you don't want the internet going, oh man, this Half-Life 3 game is so amazing, it finally came out, except for on ATI cards. So, like, that's not the story you want.
So I guess let's
Here's
start
what you do. Here's what you do. You do an update system that is transparent to the user, that it says the NVIDIA is providing a special configuration for this game, and, you know, so that it's clear.
You go to notify the users instead of trying to manipulate the driver.
Exactly.
So, I guess let's start with this. I guess I'm still lost at what is the ATI market nowadays, because there was hear me out.
Price,
NVIDIA was that's Intel to me. To me, Intel integrated graphics is what AMD used to be, which is that you can do reasonable amount of games with a little less performance, but it's at a drastically better price point. And if I want a really good graphics, I'm going to go with NVIDIA. So I mean, I suppose that ATI tries to split that down the middle, but
yeah, exactly. They're more powerful than Intel's by a large margin. I think they're cheaper than NVIDIA's.
Not by much.
And nothing says, by the way, nothing says NVIDIA isn't necessarily doing this either. Right, NVIDIA could be, and they do it. They could be doing it. They could be doing it on Windows just as easily as they're doing it on Linux. This is something that driver manufacturers have done for a while. It's just that when they tested, they only found ATI doing it, but it could be NVIDIA too. We don't know, so we can't totally slam ATI. I agree. I don't know if you're a primary Linux user what the main advantage to an AMD video card is. I'm not. Although they do have a pretty new, cool open source driver model they're working on, where there's going to be most of it in user space, and it's going to be a lot easier to update and a lot easier to install.
You know what? Even the Windows guys I know, they're just sold on NVIDIA. I haven't met an ATI fanboy in a long time.
If I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong, please. I read a while ago that there was some probing between NVIDIA and Intel or something on market dominance, and I think ATI is being given a market share naturally because of these, instead of a fine, is being applicable as per as many laptops as go in an X brand will have to go as with ATI as well, or something like that, as competition laws, at least in Europe side. But I'm not 100% sure. I need to recheck that. But definitely, I remember reading something about this.
It's definitely an interesting take on this. I hadn't thought of it being a conspiracy, but I like that. It's fun nonetheless, either way.
Yeah.
I just, it is right now. It doesn't appear to, these particular profiles also don't appear to be affecting Windows users. And it comes down to, if you're going to do crap like this, and now I'm talking to you, AMD, if you're going to do crap like this, and you're going to have specific application profiles, then it is incumbent upon you to keep that crap updated.
Yeah.
You keep on top of it. If you're going to limit my games by 40%, then it is your job, because now they have the opposite of problem.
Yeah.
Now they're crippling all my games. So seriously, if you're going to do this crap, you got to stay on top of those application profiles. And also give me an option.
That's realistic.
Give me an option to turn it all off.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think that's realistic. I don't think it's realistic that you can stay on top. I mean, you think about what you're saying.
They just come out so fast. There's so many indie games. Steam's got
It's not practical. There's no hope of them actually. There's no.
Not to mention open source games they've never even heard of.
Yeah, there's no realistic expectation to be able to do that. I like your idea. Give me a button to turn it off. Call it game optimization for select games that we know about. Blah blah blah, and then give me a toggle
optimization if you want.
Yeah.
That, I think, is the way they should do it. We'll see. We will see. And if you are an ATI user, or I'm sorry, AMD, and you want to defend them, or you got a really good reason, jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact, or go find 102, or in the Linux Action subreddit, or even better, the Mumble Room.
Yeah.
They still get royalties, by the way, guys, on the x86 64 architecture.
Yeah.
And, a couple of their APU models, which is money.
Yeah, that is their source of money, isn't it? I can't blame them. They got a good thing going there. They had to help develop a good technology. All right, Mr. Noah, let's talk about our next sponsor as we round out to the last minutes of the show, Noah. And what we're going to talk about is that Dell situation that we mentioned at the top of the show, and then also my prediction that's finally coming true.
Oh, finally, that's good.
Yeah, I know, right? Linux.ting.com. Go there, won't you, friends? Linux.ting.com, and go get yourself a device with no contract, no early termination fee, and you only pay for what you use. No BS here, guys. This is really slick. I love no contracts. I love only paying for what I use because it allows me to have a couple of phones to experiment with. Yeah. You heard me mention earlier I have a Nexus 5. I'm able to keep that and use that and not feel bad about having like a phone sitting on my desk that cost me $50, $60, $70, $80 a month.
Yeah.
It feels really good.
You know how many phones I brought with me? Ting phones I brought with me?
No.
Little Noah has one. I have mine. I have my backup. Sarah has hers. Like we have a little hotspot.
So that's like 5 devices?
Yeah, we brought like 5 out of the 9 that we have. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice. And the MiFi is a great way to go with Ting because if you don't need a ton, you can just like turn it off when you don't need it, and then when you do need it, you just pay for what you use.
Do you know what my backup for my SIP system is? They sell this. It's a home device that connects to the cellular network.
Yeah.
And then I have a jack on my on this Ting box that plugs into the FXO jack of my SIP server. So if my SIP line ever goes down, if I lose the internet, I can still make phone calls.
That's
as
awesome.
long as my local network is working, I can make calls.
Which
and it will just send them out
always
over.
is.
Yeah, and it'll just send them out over Ting. Now, do I really care? Since I'm not using any minutes most months, it costs me $6 to have that box connected.
That is a great idea.
Yeah. So if anyone ever thinks they're going to be clever and like they're going to cut my phone lines or they're going to cut the internet line, go right ahead. I can still call out. My alarm system can still call out.
Yeah.
Because it's all going through.
That's a slick backup, dude. We should set that up here at the studio. So this is really nice because if you go to linux.ting.com, I want that, Noah. You
want more backups for your phone? Is that what you're telling me?
No, what I want
You're
is...
not interrupted enough?
We had a situation, it was a year ago now, but Comcast went out all day.
Yeah.
And we brought in I think I was a Nexus 5 at the time.
With Alan, right?
Yeah, and
I remember this.
We hotspotted off that and got the show done. And I was like, gosh, but then of course Rikai couldn't do it. It'd be nice to have something that was whole house wide. Yeah. And I'd pay $6 a month to have a backup internet connection. That's genius.
Of course, I wasn't streaming on it. I'm making phone calls. But
oh yeah. Well, you know what? Actually, here though, I get 20 up, 20 down over Ting here in the studio.
Well, no, I'm not saying the speed wouldn't be good enough. I'd be a little concerned if you were going to, do internet broadcasting all day.
Oh yeah. You know what we did is we just recorded locally and just did the audio stream, and it was flawless.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just the audio stream, it worked fine.
And actually, if you think about it, with all the money you'd save, because I saved $2,000 somewhere around there. If you add that up, even if it cost you $400 or $500 to have your show on the air, that's to you, that's your livelihood. Yeah, right,
yeah,
exactly.
One time, that's no big deal.
So so
if
now
you average it over the 2 years,
now you've saved 25% less, and you still save 75% of your money.
Yeah, and actually, this might go away because Ting is awesome. Ting is changing up mobile. They're hopefully going to break up the duopolies over time, but they're not stopping there, and this is kind of exciting. Ting is rolling out fiber internet too, and they have it now in some locations. And I think a lot of you have heard me talk about this. You're probably wondering what's going on next for Ting's fiber internet service, because man, would I not just freaking love to have the Ting model come to my wired internet connection and to have it be fiber. So yeah, I'm interested to see what's coming up next, and they're going to tell us. They have a little video about it.
Nicholas K asks, for internet, are you more likely to expand outward from Charlottesville or step into cities in different parts of the country?
I think that we're more likely in Charlottesville just to focus on the existing city area for the time being. We think there's so much opportunity inside the city itself, and there's a lot of different places we can go with the network, and that's what we're really focusing on there for the time being in Charlottesville. At the same time, we want to really expand into new markets in the US. So while we're doing that in Charlottesville, you'll see us looking to get into new cities across the US as well.
Man, that's going to be crazy. Seattle. Come on, Ting. Seattle, please.
Grand Forks, North Dakota. I can send you a map so you can figure out where it is.
Go to linux.ting.com. Get our $25 discount. That'll go off your first device if you don't have one. If you have a Ting-compatible device and they have CDMA and GSM networks, they'll give you $25 service credit, which paid for more than my first month. So go to linux.ting.com and change up your mobile service and start saving money right now. Tons of great devices unlocked from like $60 feature phones all the way up to the latest and greatest Android devices. They got the One Plus there too. You might want to check out.
Yeah, I've been watching it.
Yep. I know. Yeah, that's why I'm
thinking about it.
All right, so your good buddies, your friends over at Dell, have suspended the XPS 13 Developer Edition.
Oh,
they're no
that's
longer.
not what we're talking about.
Oh, I'm talking about that.
No, I know, but that wasn't the one.
Oh, which computer were you talking about?
I was talking about that cheap 340.
Oh, yeah, that is nice. Well, that actually might be on suspend too. Hold on.
Okay.
So those of you know, the XPS 13 Developer Edition ships with Ubuntu 14.04 from Dell, and they're currently putting it on suspend. Once again, we want to thank our entire community, they say, for your posts containing feedback and questions to the Dell Tech Center forum, and this blog regarding the Ubuntu-based XPS 13 and the M3000, the M3800. Is that it? The Dell?
No,
okay.
no. The M3800, that's a Precision series.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so that cheaper $300 one is not being stopped. But the M3800 and the XPS 13 are being suspended. Last month, they posted 4 knowledge base articles addressing wireless drivers, keyboard repeats, suspend and resume, and cursor freezes. And they feel that they need to temporarily pull the plug on this laptop while they work these issues out and try to resolve the problem.
So here's my initial thoughts on that. One is, if there is a problem and they're actively going to work on it,
that's good, right?
That's a great thing. Now, personally, I kind of see through that, and I kind of get the impression that you do too, that that's not really what this is.
Well, I own one, and I don't have those problems.
Right. So here's the other side. If Dell decided to pull the plug on that particular model, I would say that is a totally justifiable decision, in that a lot of times we say that they didn't really commit to it, they didn't really push it, you can't really say that about the XPS. The XPS, because I had the older version of the XPS, and I thought they completely contributed. I mean, they totally dove in on Linux. I mean, that was a Linux laptop. It was a good Linux laptop. And if the market doesn't respond, if people don't buy those computers, then yeah, Dell's going to pull the plug.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with any of that. Where I feel like Dell went wrong, and why I'm a little upset about it. Not all that upset, but I had this impression when I got the XPS too. But and it's undeniable. It was first and foremost designed as a Windows laptop.
Oh,
they
really?
looked at the specs and went, well, I think we could also make Linux run on this, but we have to, you had that Broadcom thing. We have to accommodate for this. We have to accommodate for that. Yeah. It was first and foremost built to run Windows 8.
Yeah.
And then they later retrofitted. I mean, that's why it has a touchscreen, right? I mean, why ship a Linux laptop today with a touchscreen? Yeah. Right? It has all of these things that, like the 4K screen resolution, didn't really work very well, except for now it's a lot better since the time I've owned it. But at the beginning of this year, 4K support under Linux was really shitty. And now it's gotten to a point where it's actually usable. And thank God Chrome's high DPI and things like that. But they shipped a product where the applications on it didn't even look right on the display. The touchscreen didn't really have a use. The mouse requires a special driver. Yeah. The wireless card requires a special driver. They didn't. I don't feel like if they really wanted to go all in on building, I think with that first Sputnik, that was better. Like I felt like that was maybe from the original drawing board. This is going to run Linux. This one felt like, hey, it's been a long time since we updated the Sputnik. This laptop's pretty close that we're building with Windows 8. So let's make that our Linux one.
But at the time that they actually released the Linux version, were those problems still persistent? Because remember when all right.
I mean, for the first few weeks they had some issues, but they had some updates that resolved pretty much everything. Okay. And then Dell released 2 BIOS updates. And then after they released those 2 BIOS updates, they also released it for the original XPS 13 that was shipped with Windows. After they did those BIOS updates and the latest Linux kernel, I've never had a problem anymore.
Yeah.
Wireless works fine, sleep and suspend works fine, key repeat issue is gone, mouse issues are all gone, all that stuff is cleared up. So there were problems,
and they fixed them
through BIOS updates and stuff and kernel updates. But I feel like if they had gone at the approach where everything in this component needs to be every component in this machine needs to be Linux compatible, they wouldn't have ended up where they're at right now.
Yeah.
And the reason I don't like it is because, I mean, I'm super glad they're testing it, but I wish if you're going to pull back on it, they're sort of playing to all these stereotypes about Linux on the desktop. Yeah. Oh, you got weird issues here. We got weird issues here. In fact, they're so bad, we have to stop selling the product. Yeah. And it just puts this message out there to other OEMs that this is a train wreck that you are going to get. It's a quagmire you're going to get pulled into if you try to ship this product.
Boy, that's the truth. And the thing is, I believe, and I have believed for quite some time, that there is a market for a high-end, well-built Linux laptop.
Oh yeah, that's why I tried the XPS 13.
You and I, but
I actually think it's still a pretty great laptop.
No, I agree. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think that there's a lot of people that would say, well, Chris and Noah, you guys are the exception. Most people don't want that. Where Linux fits in is the crappy Celeron with 1366 by 768 and 120 gig SSD and 4 gigs of RAM. and you can
Or
sell
a
that for
spinning 5400.
Yeah, right. And you can sell that for $300 or $200 at Best
Yeah.
Buy. That's where Linux fits.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. I think that is one market.
There's a range.
I think there is the
Yeah.
market for that.
Yeah.
But I also think there's a big market for those Chromebook users that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I think that there is a subset of those, and I think it's a fairly large subset that would spend 3 or 4 times the amount of money on a laptop if they could keep it for the next 7 or 8 years, and it
Sure.
would work flawlessly.
Yeah, Popey, have you looked at the XPS 13, and what do you think? Is this sort of bad PR in a roundabout way? Oh, no,
He's
sorry.
lit up. But
Sorry,
Higher
Popey. Go
on that
ahead.
device. What?
I'm sorry, I cut
It's
off the first few words you said.
Oh, okay. It's a shame the quality assurance wasn't higher on the Linux shipping devices, because I know a bunch of people who bought them, both canonical and non-canonical. People who bought them and experienced the same kind of issues as everyone else, and were just as frustrated as everyone else. And yeah, I agree that probably if it had been a Linux machine from the get-go, then and everything was made to work on Linux on day one, maybe things would be different. But the problem with that is you have such a small market for really relative to the Windows market, a very small market. So making a one-off specific machine, given the low profit margin that Dell make on every machine anyway, on any machine, that's a huge amount of engineering investment in order to make a one-off machine that will work well with Linux. What generally happens with OEMs is, from our perspective at Canonical, we work with them to build the image. So that image that went on the Dell XPS 13 that was shipping was a collaboration between Dell and Canonical. So we take some of the blame for that not being as shiny as it could have been as it went out the door. And we talk to Dell a lot about these kind of issues, and there's a lot of feedback that goes back to them, and clearly they've decided that they need to stop selling the thing temporarily, just so that they can integrate all these fixes, so that the ones that go out the door are the best that they can possibly be.
But Popey, I mean, so I can accept that to a certain extent, but the reality is that you're shipped with a Broadcom card, right? If you are building a computer to run Linux, that's almost the worst possible card you could put in there, save the ones that Dell themselves make.
Here's, I guess, so
sure. Name a wireless card that's fantastic on
Intel.
On Linux.
Well, the
and
Intels
on
are pretty
Windows.
good. Intels.
No,
are-
that's bullshit. No.
I've never had an Intel card. Popey, I've never ever had an Intel card that didn't work right out of the box with Linux ever.
Well done you. But I have.
Wait, can you name it? Can you give me a model?
For the last 2 years, the IWL Wi-Fi driver, you've had to blacklist N to even stay on a wireless network. It's ridiculous. So making out like one wireless card is somehow blessed by the gods and is way better than all the others is just bull, because they are all shit.
I respectfully disagree with you. And I don't mean like the 1 or 2 or 3 laptops I've had over the year. I mean like 50, 60 different computers, all have had Intel cards, and I've never had an issue. So I am
that's
I'm blown
nice
away.
for you, but you're not alone. And I get people PMing me saying, "Hey, what's that thing that I put in etc modules.d or whatever that disables wireless N on Intel cards because I'm at a customer site and I can't get on their Wi-Fi?" And this is a common problem.
Can you give me a model that I can put into my computer?
Whatever's in my X220 that I'm talking
I've
to
had
you
one
now.
Intel card I have had issues with, but for the most part they've been pretty good for me.
I have an X220,
right,
and I don't have a problem with my wireless card.
I love Intel as much as the next guy, right? But you can't hold them up as being the panacea of perfection, because there are issues with their wireless drivers, and there are issues with their X drivers, and to make out like they're somehow way more perfect than ATI or Nvidia is just missing the point.
I can't speak to graphics, but I'll tell you this: if you order 10 Intel Wi-Fi cards off of Amazon, different models, and you order 10 Broadcom cards, I'll make a bet right now that 10 of the Intel ones will work on Linux right out of the box, and 9 out of the 10 of the Broadcom ones won't work out of the box.
I wonder,
and 5 of those you'll never get to work.
I wonder if the differences you guys are talking about is Noah's talking about actually turning the card on and connecting, like the driver seeing it, and I think Popey's talking about like reliability of connection to the wireless network.
Oh, that might be.
Yeah, actually,
okay, that might be.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: I will deal with. So to that, here would be my answer. My answer would would be, I'll take the card that is less reliable than the card that gives me no Wi-Fi whatsoever.
Well, I think Wi-Fi is just unreliable. I wanted to address I think Popey made a pretty fair point in that, Dell doesn't really have the time, resources, or motivations to make that XPS laptop Linux first, because really they're selling probably 99% more Windows laptops than they are going to sell the Linux version of that laptop. So from an entire company orientation standpoint, it makes a lot more sense, a lot more practical sense to put your resources behind the product that's going to go to all of your profit. However, I think you could apply that same logic model and say that's why it's critical that they make this machine their focus. They make it so important they get it right, because they're coming into a new market, hat in hand, humble, saying this is our entrance into this space. We want this to be the developer edition. People that are developing software for Linux, this is a machine for you. And if you want to come into a new market and you want to bring a new group of people into your product and you want to show them that when you launch a product for them, you can do it right, it's absolutely important that you get all of the small details right. And I hate doing this, but let's be honest. If Apple made this machine, they wouldn't care about that. They would say, if we're going to build a machine for these people, then we have to build it with all of these components. Just like, and of course for us, if it wouldn't match, it would have one port and it would be horrible. We wouldn't like it. That's how they get the MacBook One. But they start at that spot and they say, what does this group need? What do these people need? And they build the entire machine, even if it's going to be a tiny, tiny fraction of their business, because it's actually more important, right? Because you're introducing yourself to a new set of people, a new set of potential buyers, and you're trying to carve out a new space in the marketplace that potentially in the future, as this market grows, they will come to you as one of the people that builds the best product for that. And I think if you don't come at that with that perspective, you will never break into that market. You always end up with what Dell has. A pretty solid attempt, but the end execution just isn't right. And then what unfortunately happens, even though they work so hard, and there's people in the Dell Linux team that they just work with the best that they've been given. I've talked to them, and they're good people. But the reality is, the product ends up not being good enough. And over and over and over again, despite their hard efforts, Dell underdelivers. And then when they have to retract, they do it publicly in a way that is embarrassing to Linux. And that's super unfortunate.
So if you have three options, given the state that they're in right now, right, they've got one part of the company, the significant part that's manufacturing these laptops designed for Windows 8.1 or 10 or whatever the latest thing is, and a tiny, tiny Sputnik team who are doing their best to get Linux working on these machines and shipping from a global company like Dell and trying to get all the divisions of Dell around the world shipping those things, because not every division sells it. As you've seen, you can find it on Dell.co.uk but not on Dell.com, for example.
Right.
And they're doing their absolute best, and they get to a situation where they are now is a laptop that is not good enough to have the Dell brand name on it, right? So what do? Do you completely scrap that project and you just forget it? Or do you carry on shipping those devices knowing that they're crap and that they shouldn't have the Dell name on them? Or do you stop shipping them, stop the line, fix it at the factory, and make sure that every machine that goes out from that point onwards is right? And I think that is the right option. Yes, they could have made different decisions in the past,
right,
but they are where they are. And where they are right now, I think they've made the right decision.
And I agree with you if that's what ends up happening. I guess what I'm afraid of is that they're not going to keep shipping them, that they're just pulling the plug, and that's a polite way of them doing that. And if that's not I hope to God I'm wrong about that.
I think that part almost doesn't matter, because it just feels like it's been fist-hammed so far.
I don't know.
Barton George is the head of the Sputnik team, and he tweeted, "It's on pause. We're fixing it."
They say pause. They say pause. I believe it's a pause. I believe it is. That's not what I have issue with. I have issue with it's the damage is done. That's what I have issue with.
I don't know. Here's the thing. I think that exactly what Popey just said. I mean, given the environmental variables that they're put into, I think they did the best job possible. I don't think it's cost effective to build a 1200 when you're a company that makes all of your money off of selling Windows laptops. I don't know that it makes a business.
Actually, they don't make all their money selling Windows laptops.
Servers?
No. Do you have another guess?
SAN storage?
It's not a piece of hardware.
Oh. Dell doesn't know. Then I have no idea.
Now, this was 2014, and this is 2015. I don't know if you knew that, so I don't know if this is still true or not. But I'm actually looking at the financial analysis of Dell and HP right now as we record this show. And Dell makes the bulk of its income from financing.
Oh, I guess that's not surprising. But financing what? computers
Yeah.
and servers.
But that's actually what they make their money from, is off the interest rates that people are paying when they finance Dell computers.
Yeah, but they have to buy those computers to begin with. So the
It's
argument
just,
is
just something to kind of think about when you think about it. Like, what they actually make money from is being a bank. It's
Yeah.
kind of funny.
Yeah, it's but they have to make computers compelling enough for people to want to finance
them.
with. Yeah.
Yeah.
But given those variables, then I agree. I'm inclined to agree with Popey that the best possible solution is to halt production, fix the problems, and then pick it back up. That's a responsible thing to do.
In given the available options, yes.
Right.
And I think, it's hard for me to kind of convey this perspective, but the perspective that I'm worried about isn't what you think or I think or consumers think. I'm thinking Lenovo and HP are watching this and they're thinking, boy, look at that shit show. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, maybe.
That's what I'm worried about.
Maybe. But then you look at the way that Samsung has rolled out Chromebooks, and really, other than
that just validates that statement. In order for Linux to be successful, it has to be wrapped up in Chrome. It has to be Chrome OS. If you try to ship actual Linux, you get this. You get a product you have to pull off the market.
Yeah, but here's the thing: Samsung, and maybe this is just because you really don't think that Lenovo sees that, though. I mean, Samsung built a computer specifically to run Chrome OS. You know what I mean? And so did Acer, and so did HP, and whoever else.
I think they very closely watch their competitors and see how their different products do in the marketplace.
Yeah, but
I think HP's shipped Chrome first, but they subsequently shipped them with Windows, like cut down Windows and Linux as well.
I guess my point was that I don't think that Lenovo's going to look over and say, "Oh, that laptop failed." And I don't think that the people at Lenovo are that dumb; they won't be able to figure it out. That,
maybe.
Oh, you know,
I don't. I think
Really?
they do watch their competitors and they see what products do really well, and then they execute based on what other markets are.
Well, right. So Lenovo probably won't take an existing Windows product and put Linux on it and try and sell it.
Or maybe they'll spend a little more time on Q&A. I mean, because really, Dell could have avoided a lot of this with some proper QA. I mean, not that they didn't. I know they QA'd it, but they could have avoided a lot more.
Yeah, that's true.
Harm. I mean, they are potentially poisoning the well for their own future products too.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think there's a market.
But don't forget, this is just one of the Sputniks. Like, this is like, I don't know, what, the third, fourth generation of the Sputniks, and this is the only one that's had these kind of significant issues.
That's true. The first
multiple Sputnik devices that have been shipped to many people. I have no idea what the sales numbers are, but it's quite a lot of people.
I would love them to tell us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's commercial data.
Yeah,
I guess they probably won't.
Yeah. They probably will never will. But yeah. So here's what. My prediction coming true. I think this is, you got Chromebooks. Now, I'm surprised we haven't really seen this, but this is an Android PC that is actually doing pretty well on Kickstarter. It's got 8,161 backers. It's tiny. It's made $533,000 with 39 days to go. I'm just going to play a little bit of it. We'll just play a little bit of it just because it's sort of a good capper to this conversation where we keep going back between Chrome OS and getting Linux right.
The way we think reflects the world we live in. Ideologies change with the times. In the past few decades, a thought evolution has happened. We've gone from expecting excessively more to embracing sustainably less. At Giant Technology, we're innovating the next evolutionary leap in personal computing that embodies less can be more. Less cost, more value. Less design, more functionality. Less wasteful, more sustainable. Less waiting, more doing. Less power, more performance. Less Windows, more apps. Introducing the Remix Mini. The world's first true Android PC. Finally, less can be more.
Starting at $20.
I fundamentally disagree with everything that video just said.
Also, could it get any more pretentious?
I know, right?
Like, okay, so let's start with this. I cannot believe that somebody would make a video to talk about how you should expect your computer to do less.
Oh, yeah, you can.
No. Okay, that's where I'm starting there.
Okay,
and
all right, go ahead. Keep going. Keep going.
And you know what? For any of the advantages that stupid piece of junk offers, my Linux box has done for the last 20 years. So why do I care again?
So because finally less is more. It's what they're selling is the subtext. The subtext is it's simplified. It's easier. It's because if you tell an end users look at computers as complicated. Too much going on. There's too much. Like remember I was telling you about that user is like, why do I keep getting notifications about updates? I don't care about updates to these apps I never use. Why do I keep getting to them? It's too much.
Yeah.
So if you tell them it's simple, you can do more with less. The subtext is, this is a computer that's just going to do the bare what you need it to do. That's the subtext.
Here's what I hear. What I hear is, here's a computer that you can spend less money on, and it'll do less because because the application environment is just so spread up, and we can't decide if we want to write for Windows. Android, who knows what Windows is happening.
Android has apps, man. You can get apps now.
Yeah, Android has apps. Some of them are crappy apps, and even the ones that people use in business are so bad, and we just shoehorn them into fit.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I watched a guy.
Yeah.
Chris, I watched a guy. This is like 3 weeks ago, right? And he's going to do his go-to meeting.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So he has a stupid Android tablet.
Yeah.
And he sets it up, and the thing falls over.
Of course.
Okay. So then he picks it back up and like sets, and then he's trying to edit.
And he's tapping it. He's tapping it.
Because they're going to
knocking
edit
it
this
over.
Excel sheet, right? So he's trying to maximize the thing, and he's in the middle
He's
of
sitting there
explaining this.
pinching and zooming while he's talking.
Yes.
Yeah.
While he's giving this business presentation on selling a $500,000 hotel, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me.
You look like a dork.
Get a desktop.
A
Get
laptop.
a laptop. Like, why are you doing this on your tablet? And then he gets done, and this is what he says to me. He goes, man, isn't technology amazing? I can do all that from my tablet. And I'm like, you're kidding me right now.
Yeah.
That was horrible. That was horrible. That was a mess. That was a disaster. How can you say, I can't believe we can do that right now?
I did to brag about it afterwards. That's classic.
So that's what this commercial embodies to me, is this idea that we're okay just not caring about our computers. You know what I was thinking about the other day on the way over, on the flight over here? The way that ham radio works, in order to actually use the ham radio, you can go buy one.
Yeah,
you have to get licensed before you can do that, right?
Yeah.
Now imagine this. What would happen if we required a license before you could purchase a personal computer? You had to understand the basics of memory management, of hard drives, of how the file system works.
Nobody would use them, dude. You'd have as many. Just like as many. You'd have as many computer users as you have hams.
That's right. You would have very few people that used it, but the people that used it wouldn't be so stupid. You would have people. Users would understand the technology they're working with. I'm not actually advocating for that. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But the reality is that this just embodies how silly users have become.
Well, Daredevil, don't you think it's a matter of just the systems are honestly too complex for the jobs they want to get done?
No. Look, Android, people have the perspective that it just works.
Yeah,
You're used
it's
to getting
easy.
a phone that it works.
Sure, it's easy.
But it's not
Tap it
just
7
not
times.
just the easy part, it's the not set up part. It's no
Tap it
driver
twice.
issues. It's the update, it's a one button press.
Mm-hmm.
When it happens, it's like installing an app is an app store.
All your apps are updated. It's a much easier
Feel
paradigm
this.
for users.
That has been sitting in my pocket.
It's burning up.
Why is that so hot?
Your phone's on fire, dude.
My phone's on fire. So what do you mean it just works? I pulled it right out of my pocket. I have not touched that phone in the last 40 minutes.
And now you just charge it and your battery's down to 30%.
That's right, 30%, down from 100 when we started the show.
Yeah.
Not 60. And what the heck is this thing doing? So don't tell me Android just works. Come on.
I mean, you're forgetting all the sensors and all the NSA probing the data.
Right,
Come on, you have to
right.
discount that information.
What I love about it, and I don't know if it has to be a simple computer, I love the idea of a cheap computer that's functional, that gets people online. Like, because that opens the door up to a whole lot of people, opens up to kids, schools, libraries, third world.
How much is that thing?
What, well, they say they'll eventually be able to sell it for 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So assuming that's right, how is that more advantageous than the Raspberry Pi?
Because it's all set up.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You get it out of a box.
I don't know. This isn't the solution. I think what we're seeing here is there's something here. This isn't it. Raspberry Pi isn't it because it's too manual. But there's something in this area that I think and in order to get the price down here, it's going to have to be Linux based. I think.
Yeah.
The world's first true Android PC. I don't actually think that's true either. Yeah, Nate points out you could make it a $20 Plex client. You know?
Yeah, I mean, so I tried using both Raspberry Pis. I've tried using Chrome boxes and flashing different. Yeah, and so here's what I found. Eventually, what I found was the drawbacks to doing that. It just makes more sense to buy the Celeron Nook for $140.
And I'll tell you what, this is not, like Popey's pointing out in the chat, this is not the first Android PC, and I think the reason is they're not taking off.
Yeah.
I joke about me predicting this because I actually thought somebody would get it. I thought somebody could nail it. It seemed like you have a great base OS, you got some great apps, you just tweak it a little bit. Everybody likes to put a custom UI on there.
I called the Ubuntu phone with the Ubuntu dock.
Yeah.
But here's the other part of that too, is that
That's true.
If I take a small ARM computer that's going to run Android, why would I bother putting that into a tower? I'll just build that into an all-in-one. And there are Android all-in-ones. And really, if you think about it, the desktop, the mobile operating system that just basically gets you online, that is built into a desktop or a tower, that is Chrome OS. I mean, that is the market that Chrome OS is, right?
And it's got the brand.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. And of course, I think that means there may be room for convergence one day, though. Could be. I think because if you don't want something like this, but you want also something mobile, I'll just say we'll save that debate for a future episode.
Yeah,
but I think
you can make that prediction. Maybe in 3 years that won't come true.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. We are going to be at OSCON if you're listening to this and you're going to be in the Portland area, meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting for more information. We're going to be there Wednesday, July 22nd, hanging out, and we'd love to see you guys there. So meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. If you have any feedback or comments for this episode, you can go to linuxactionshow.reddit.com or the contact form if you want to email us or just join us in the Mumble Room. We usually do the show on Tuesdays, but this week, to make room for OSCON, we recorded on a Monday right after Coda Radio. It was a back-to-back edition. So I'm really thankful that you guys in the Mumble Room were able to show up on the Monday. I really appreciate it. Good turnout. Noah, thanks for coming in studio today.
Hey, anytime.
And, have a great time at OSCON.
Maybe I'll see you there.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe we'll bump into each other. All right, cool. All right, also, you can follow Noah. He's on Twitter. Noah, give him your Twitter handle.
My Twitter handle is @KernelLinux.
Yep.
This guy over here is @ChrisAlias.
That's a fact.
You know what? You changed it.
But it's
and now you confused everyone.
the same name, though.
Here, let's see what
It's
you're
weird.
up to now.
It's like not that much. It makes me feel bad.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like 1,000. I don't know. All right, buddy. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode. See you next Tuesday. All right, did you look? What is it? Is it 1,000?
1,200.
1,200? All right, not bad. That's not bad since it's a brand new account, really.
Yeah, no, I think so. Especially because I've had the same Twitter account for 7 years, and I'm up to 835.
All right, jbtitles.com. Let's pick our title for this week's episode of the Unplugged Show.
I was watching those little airport, they have the little videos that play over and over again that want to make you kill yourself because you hear them so much. Yeah. There's one about Twitter, and it was saying the way to get more Twitter followers is just to tweet, and I'm like, wow, what a revolutionary concept. I never thought of that.
It is true, and reply, and it really does, because I don't tweet very much. I do not, when I have a free moment, my first thought is, ooh, let's update Twitter.
Yeah, actually, so here's been my thought on Twitter. Twitter's concept has always been, what are you doing right now? Here's my answer. I don't care. I mean, most people, let's face it, I don't care what you're doing right now.
All right, jbtitles.com, a lot to pick from. GPU hacks, the Canonical Dell and AMD games, that's not bad. GPL gets trumped, that's not too, or CDL gets trumped. Noah's home ting shop. Doo-wop. jbtitles.com. Any post-show topics for the Mumble Room you guys want to talk about before we get out of here for the day? We didn't have a Mumble Unplugged, but...
Not sure if you guys...
What happened to a tight show?
Not sure if you guys saw the biofuel new thing that they discovered. Like, they can use some energy from your sweat and also form synthetic movement of your organs.
Boy, I could power the shit out of some stuff in the studio right now. It is hot in here. It's getting warm, right?
Hey, maybe you could power an air conditioner with your sweat.
That'd be amazing. Oh man.
Well, you can at least charge your watch.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Charging.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Do you think we'll have sweat-powered watches one day? No? Okay.
I think you're gonna have. I think there's a lot more longevity in either. I think there's more longevity.
Sweat will be.
Good.
Go ahead.
I think there's going to be a lot more
I love it.
Get some.
I love it.
I think there's going to be a lot more longevity in either solar-powered watches or I forget the name, but the thing that
where we move and it charges.
Yeah, right. There's a name for that though.
Yeah.
Kinetic.
Yeah, Kinetic.
Yeah. What do you guys think? Canonical Dell and AMD games. You like that title?
Love it.
It's not too bad, really.
The best one ever.
Yeah, sure.
On the whole Dell XPS thing, though, I got the 2015 Developer Edition, and one of the things I want to highlight is currently in the Linux world, there aren't too many laptops, high-end laptops. Well, not even that. It's the appliance. It's the laptop
you just mean
that
like
works.
Yeah, like I was able to get a tiny laptop with an i7 processor, an SSD drive, an Intel Iris graphics, and a 4K screen. Like, there's not a lot of Linux laptops that check all those boxes.
Yeah, and that have the support from someone like Canonical and Dell behind it that are managing the update process for you, and you just use it.
Hey man, that's why I bought it, dude. That was like right up like and so that's why but I don't. I run Arch, probably not too surprising, and I literally don't have any of the problems that they were talking about in the article.
I ran Arch on mine for a period of time.
Yeah, I did.
Switched back.
Yeah, yep,
to
yep.
Ubuntu.
Now, I had to do that too until a kernel update, and I got the latest version of the BIOS. And then after that, I went back to Arch, and I've had no problems.
Ooh, try it then.
Yeah, it worked a lot better for me. That was
Chris,
yeah.
When do you arrive at OSCON?
We'll be down there Wednesday morning. We're going to be in the area Tuesday evening.
Are you going to be doing any interviews or anything?
Oh yes, oh yes. You have somebody we should talk to?
Yes.
Oh,
Muggles.
tell us.
Yeah, David Clennell.
Hey, Poppy.
He's, yeah.
Can you you have me on Telegram, right?
I unfortunately do. Yes.
Well, you loser. When you have a chance, if you can send me the contact info, I actually I have a tentative schedule. I think we're going to be doing the interviews on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And I have a tentative schedule of people that have asked to speak with us at tentative times. If you could get me his contact information.
Totally, Adam. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, then we'll set something up and we'll make it happen.
Awesome. Appreciate that.